Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Oyo ndi Furupelani Mashapa, Wananyana wa Muvenda, Shidade Muari. Namacheko Alina Seger, Rutiti Runa Jasi. Welcome everyone. To those who are here for the first time, welcome. And to those who are returning subscribers, I love you. That's all I have for you today. I love you so much, guys. Thank you for coming back for yet another exciting episode of risk insurance and money. Before we go on, I just want to say, disclaimer, contents of this video do not constitute as financial advice. And if you need financial advice, please guys, speak to your financial advisor. Please speak to your financial advisor. But anyways, without further ado, I promised you guys that the next video will be about emergency funds. And here we are today. So today we will be talking about emergency funds. And there are essentially 5 questions I want to answer in this video. The first question is, what is an emergency fund? And the second question is, who needs an emergency fund? The third question will be, when do you set up an emergency fund? The fourth question will be, where do you invest this emergency fund? And the last one will be, how much should your emergency fund be? Alright, cool. Let's get on now to the very first question. So first question, what is an emergency fund, right? An emergency fund is a form of self-insurance, right? So let me just decode this sentence a bit. So there are different types of insurance, right? Which we will speak to in later videos. It's exciting. I'm really excited to start sharing on insurance. But before I get ahead of myself, so there is self-insurance, which an individual or a company insures themselves. And how do they do that? They set aside money for, in case of a risk event happening or something happening. For example, you can decide not to take out a life cover and just invest your money or save your money elsewhere. Then there is what we call mainstream insurance, right? So mainstream insurance is insurance that is sold to medium class to high class individuals, right? Most of your major life insurers in South Africa or insurance companies in South Africa, they sell mainstream insurance. And then there is what we call micro insurance, right? So micro insurance aims to target your low income earners, right? But then the definition now of microinsurance is becoming so broad and new things are coming into the market. So the definition is changing a bit. And then when we talk of self-insurance, an emergency fund being a type of self-insurance, we mean that you as an individual, you set aside money in case of an emergency. The claim event is an emergency, right? But when we say the claim event is an emergency, it's important for you to define what an emergency is, right? Because the lines can be blurry if what your emergency is not defined. I think the better way to do this will be, what is not an emergency, right? Your 11 p.m. Uber Eats cravings, they're not an emergency, right? Your last minute trip with a friend, that's not an emergency. Well, what else? That 50% off red sale, that is not an emergency. So what can constitute as an emergency? Well, number one can be, for example, someone passes on at home and you didn't plan that you will be going home for that month. So that is an emergency. You now need to incur transport expenses which were not part of your budget. And that's a reasonable emergency, right? Or, for example, you fall ill, and we know with medical aids, normally when you buy like stuff from the pharmacy, like your pills or whatever the doctor will prescribe for you, some medical aids have excesses or they have limits, right? By excess we mean, for example, if your medicine or if your pills, they cost like 300 Rand, they might say you need to pay the first 100 Rand as an excess. Okay, cool. Or they might say, okay, it's fine, there's a limit of 700 which you can purchase pills or whatever from the pharmacy. So whatever amount is remaining, you need to cover that yourself. And you might find that at that particular point in time, you don't have enough money to actually cover the remaining amount. So that's when an emergency comes in. In essence, it is that thing that is saving all of us from debt. The reason why a lot of people are in debt today, it's because if an emergency happens, the first thing they think of is getting a personal loan or using their credit card. But if you have an emergency fund in place, whenever an emergency arises, right, then you can simply use that money you've saved in order to pay for whatever expense, you know. So okay, cool. It is also that thing you must have. I can't emphasize this enough. It is also that thing you must have before you even start to think about investing your money. You need to have an emergency fund, because if you take all your money and you invest it before you put aside money in your emergency fund, then what will happen is you will constantly disinvest, because emergencies happen and they won't make an appointment before they actually happen. Okay, cool. I hope that describes what an emergency fund is. So it's just a sum of money that you put aside in order in cases of an emergency. Then second question, who needs an emergency fund? Like, who needs self-insurance? I believe that every single person needs an emergency fund. All of us. Whether you're a parent, you are a student, you are working, young professional, every single person needs an emergency fund, because emergencies happen to all of us, you know, and the last thing we need is for people to be stranded because they just don't have money at that point in time. Okay, cool. And then the third question is, when do I set up an emergency fund? Well, in the case of someone who has just started working, right, I would say the first 6 months of you working, you should use that in order to build your emergency fund. I understand that you cannot take your whole entire salary and put it as your emergency fund, because you still need to pay bills, but the idea is for you to build that fund over time such that you will have enough money at the end of the day. All right, cool. An important question would be, where do I put this emergency fund, right? So the main idea is you want to put your emergency fund in an account that is not easily accessible, right? For example, you can put it in a fixed deposit account, or you can put it in a notice account. You know that those 7 days notice, or like your 30 days notice account. And what I love about this is you are most likely going to change your mind about spending that money if whatever is making you take that decision to spend the money is not really an emergency. So you are going to change your mind before you even set your foot by the bank. Why do I say that? For a notice account, you need to go to the bank, notify them, right, way in advance that you need the money. For a fixed deposit as well, fixed term deposit as well, it's still the same thing. You need to go inside the bank, and we all know how much that takes energy and time. So chances are you are going to definitely give up before you go to the bank, which is great. Then another option maybe for you, if you love investing in equities, stocks, you can actually take your emergency fund and put it in those stocks, right? But what I don't like about this strategy is the fact that we all know how volatile asset prices are in the market, how your equities literally rise and fall every single day. So the unfortunate part is, because you don't know the timing of the emergency, right? It might happen that you need to sell your shares, right? Or if you have invested the money in a unit trust, you need to sell the shares or the units at a lower price, and that will actually make you incur capital losses as an investor, right? So it's some financial advisors would advise you to do that, but I don't think it's a good idea, because then there's that risk of the share price or the unit price being low than what you initially bought them for, which can lead to capital losses. Okay, cool. And now to the final question, right? I think this is the most important one. They always say keep the best for last. This is an important question, the fifth question, which is, how much should my emergency fund be, right? An emergency fund should be equivalent to your 6 months worth of expenses, which is like your monthly expense. So whatever you're spending on rent, on groceries, whatever you're spending on water, electricity, entertainment, whatever that amount is, you multiply that by 6, right, to get the 6 months worth of expenses. Or the golden rule for emergency funds actually say it should be 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So worst case scenario, just put in your 3 months worth of expenses, right? And I think the tricky part with this is you should avoid having like an emergency fund that is too big. Reason being that you are going to put this money in a fixed deposit account, or you're going to put it in a money market account, or you're going to invest in whatever vehicle, savings or investment vehicle you're going to put this money in, and chances are it won't earn as much interest in that particular place you will put it at. So it's very, 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 very important to actually put your to put just the right amount, which is like your 3 months or your 6 months worth of expenses in your emergency fund. Then whatever money you have after that, that is now when you need to start thinking about investing so that your money works for you. But I will definitely advise you not to invest first before you build your emergency fund. Like, it should always be build an emergency fund and then start thinking about investing, not the other way around. So that is all I had for you guys in this video. If you have any questions relating to emergency funds or any tips you would like to give other people about emergency funds, please drop them down on the comment section. I love you guys a lot. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And yeah, let's grow together, let's share knowledge together. No one knows everything. I also don't know everything, and I am hoping to learn from you guys. So until next time, bye.